let's go.
Alright, so we're group 3. I'm Lucy,
I'm Noah.
Model.
Ryan?
and we titled our research study Student Loans versus Mental Health. And the order we're going to go through things today is going to be the introduction, the literature review, hypothesis development. We're going to talk about the study that we kind of modeled our research off of. We'll do some survey overview and then results and resources available. So our research objective is to display how accumulated student loan debt can negatively impact students' well-being and mental health. And by doing this, we hope to raise awareness as well as build community, because we're all going through the struggles of what it takes to go through school. And by talking to each other, we can learn from each other. So that's kind of what we mean by build community.
So, going over the introduction again, our study purpose here, we want to investigate the financial factors impacting students' well-being. As we talked about, money is a pretty big stress for most Americans. 71% of them reporting that money is a significant source of stress in their life. And then we talked about the rising tuition, housing, and living costs is putting pressure on students to work while they're to support themselves while going through school, with 64% of them working while enrolled and 40% of those students actually working full-time. And then studies have shown that working too much while you're in school makes you more susceptible to drop out, with the UW-Madison study showing that students who work more than 25 hours are 15% more likely to drop out of school.
Continuing with our introduction, many college students prioritize achieving high grades, but financial responsibility adds significant pressure to that. The average tuition costs in the U.S. are $42,162 for private colleges, $23,630 for out-of-state public universities, and then in-state public universities range at $10,662. Balancing both work and school is challenging, which leads a lot of students to struggle with managing both of them, and a lot of students take out loans to cover costs, resulting in substantial debt at a really young age.
So student loan debt is a lot of debt to be in at such a young age, and it can be troubling for a lot of students as we take these loans out before we're ever in a position to repay them. And it can kind of be daunting, because debt like this can lead to decisions about delaying life events like marriage or home ownership. And it can be troubling because it can feel like a setback for many students, and it can negatively impact their mental health because they feel behind.
So physical stress can lead to depression, impacting overall well-being, and academic constraint. Financial pressure often force students to work while studying, and long-term effects influence career choice, pushing students to prioritize income.
Alright, for academic performance and employment, the work's impact on the students. There was a study done in PERNA in 2010 that shows that 70% of students balance a work and school balance, and that over 20 work hours weekly leads to lower grades and a reduced involvement in campus activities, clubs, book fairs, and stuff like that. You just don't have the time to do them. Academic and mental health effects. Another study done by Johnson in 2019 showed that working students report higher fatigue, stress, and lower GPAs while working, and increased risk of burnout, anxiety, and depression from juggling both the responsibilities is pretty common.
So hypothesis one is that higher student loan debt is associated with lower well-being among university students. In other words, all other students take on more to fund their education, that may experience a decrease in their overall quality of life.
So hypothesis 2, students who accumulate more student loan debt are more susceptible to mental health problems. Research has shown that when students accumulate a high level of debt, they tend to feel less self-assured, experience lower financial well-being, and increase in stress as well. When facing financial stress, individuals may exhibit behaviors like avoiding discussions about money, withdrawing from social activities, and even experiencing anxiety as well. These signs may indicate a need for support. Guiding these students to seek help from financial professionals can alleviate stress, enhance financial well-being, and foster more of a confident and informed approach to managing debt.
So there was a study that we modeled our research study off of, and it was called Sick of Our Loans. And this was a 10-year-long study that had over 4,000 students involved, and they measured the impacts that accumulated student loan debt had on student psychological functioning and mental health, so very similar to ours. And we liked this study because all of their surveys were Likert scales, and when we learned about different survey formats, we kind of decided that's the route we wanted to go as well. And then they also used regression to analyze their results, which is also what we did. And for their dependent variable of mental health, in order to measure that, they used a mental health inventory survey, which is known to have high validity. So the mental health portion of our survey, we pulled questions from this inventory in order to maintain that high validity. And then the results of this study were that accumulated student loan debt does have negative impacts on mental health.
So, looking back at our survey a little bit, our sample group was obviously college students, freshmen and up, as long as they're enrolled. And the goal was to examine the effects that college costs have on students' well-being. Our initial target was 300, I think, like everybody, but we slimmed that down to a more realistic goal of 150 to 125 responses. And we actually got about 186, but 45, 46 of those weren't fully completed, so we cut those ones out and skimmed it down to 140, just so that we had more clear and concise data. And then our survey structure, like Lucy talked about a little bit, with student loan focus and mental health focus based off of our sample study. And then for platform distribution, obviously we use Qualtrics to store all the data, and then for distribution, mostly we use social media. I know a lot of us put it on our Instagram and Snapchat stories, and that was 90% of where we got our results from. And we did do a little bit of word of mouth. I know Otto distributed it amongst the football team a little bit, and that was successful with the small amount of people we were able to reach, but social media was where 95% of our responses came from.
Alright, so moving on to like our demographic results, for gender we had a pretty almost even split, but obviously female overpowered a little bit. And then for academic standings, it was primarily upperclassmen, more seniors than juniors, and we think this is because we're for the most part seniors, so distributing it to classmates and acquaintances, that was kind of more of what we were getting. And we also thought upperclassmen were more willing to take the survey because they've accumulated more student loan debt, so they're more interested in it, versus a freshman only has like one semester of student loan debt, so that number isn't as intimidating as when you have quite a few semesters under your belt. And then similar thing with age, 21 and 22 were the top two ages, and that wasn't very surprising after we realized it was mostly upperclassmen, because those are about the average ages for upperclassmen. And then as for housing, we had a lot more off-campus than on-campus, and again, this goes back to upperclassmen, because at Northern, once you reach junior status or you're 21 or older, you get the choice of living on or off campus, and most people choose to live off campus because it's usually cheaper.
Alright, so into our analysis, our first hypothesis, we used the simple regression. So student loans is our independent value or variable, and financial well-being was our dependent variable. And so we were able to create our alternative hypothesis that higher student loan debt is associated with lower financial well-being among university students, and then our null hypothesis, obviously the opposite of that. And then when we ran that, we were able to find that it was significant, so we would accept our alternative hypothesis that a higher student loan debt is associated with lower financial well-being score, and then from that we were able to get a slope formula, intercept 3.42, and then the slope in the negative 0.69 or 0.296. And then again, for our other hypothesis, we did simple regression again. So student loans as our independent and the mental health as our dependent. And then again, our null hypothesis and alternative, students who accumulate more student loan debt are either more or not more susceptible to mental health problems. And then again, when we did that, we were able to find that it was significant, so we could conclude and accept our alternative hypothesis for that as well. And then we were also able to create another line there with the intercept and the slope. And then just a visualization of that, you can see the dependent variable of our mental health question on the left there, loans down at the bottom, so as student loans are increasing, that score for mental health, and the higher score is reflecting a lower grade on the mental health scale. Yeah, so for our conclusion, we were able to accept both alternative hypotheses and then create an equation so we could understand somebody's financial well-being or student loans with one or the other, and then same with hypothesis 2 as well.
Alright, moving into recommendations. First off, we have the resources that are available at Northern. First off being the Wellbeing Center. If you're a student at Northern, you have full access to this. Any struggles, questions, concerns that you have, you can go and speak to a professional about it. They're open from Monday to Friday from 8 to 5. And then more recently, they partnered with Health Advocate to offer students online counseling services outside of the traditional business hours. Again, it's 100% free to current and new students, and it's available between the hours of 5 p.m. to 8 a.m. So essentially, you have 24 hours of help if need be. You can reach out to anybody at any time. It doesn't need to be a school-related issue, but if it is related to your finances, you can speak to a professional who can relay you to someone that can really help. Then moving on to scholarship opportunities. I think starting off developing a scholarship awareness campaign, hosting annual scholarship fairs to connect students with funding opportunities, and creating a monthly newsletter that could be emailed out to all the students. It would be easily curated to kind of navigate through for different majors, and it would be very clear what scholarships you could apply for before the year. Highlight underutilized scholarships. There's a lot of scholarships that have very few applicants and people just don't know about them, so identifying and promoting the lesser known or specialized scholarships would be really important, and partnering with departments to target students who are eligible and may not even know. And then finally offering micro scholarships, small grants ranging from $300 to $1,500 for achievements like making the Dean's List, academic improvement like from one semester to the next, bumping like 0.5 GPA or something like that in a semester's time, being in leadership roles like clubs, stuff like that, or using your extra time for community service. Awarding small grants for that, just being like a good student in general, whether it's in the classroom, your extra time could help like lessen the burden at the end of the semester for the finances, and just award good behavior and good results in the classroom.